Welcome to New York Got Game.
Welcome back to another edition of the best show covering New York basketball to the fullest. On this playoff edition of the New York Got Game, we're going to be focused on the Knicks. Now, the Bockers, they had a chance to put the Celtics on the brink, but Game 3 turned into a garden nightmare as Boston dominated New York 115-93. Now, leading the series 2-1, the Knicks face critical questions ahead of a pivotal Game 4 on Monday. What needs to change offensively for the team? Is it time for Tom Thibodeau to shake up the rotation? And can the Knicks still put a stranglehold on this series? So, to answer those questions, break it all down, joining me now on New York Got Game is the Knicks Film School contributor. His name is John Schmeelk, and he joins me now. John, what's going on, man?
Dex, happy Mother's Day, man. Hope you're well.
I'm well. Happy Mother's Day to you, your wife. Well, really to your wife, not to you.
Of course, and yes, and to your wife as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We both did our, family duties we need to do for Mother's Day. Now we get to talk about some Knicks just for a little bit before we get back to
So, Dex,
things.
what I should have said,
Yes.
not Happy Mother's Day, but congratulations on not screwing up Mother's Day from your perspective.
That is the job. That is the job, to not take any L's on Mother's Day. That for us guys out there, that means to go take care of your mom. If your mom's still around for you to do so, if you got your lady to take care of, do the same. If she's a mother, do the same. Don't take any L's on Mother's Day. John didn't take an L. I didn't take an L. Everything seems to be pretty good. But speaking of L's, the Knicks did take an L in Game 3, John. What is your biggest takeaway from the Knicks Game 3 loss? And is there anything positive for the Knicks to build on for Game 4?
All right, let me take the macro look for a second, right? No Knicks fan should be surprised. Did anyone think they were going to, go up 3-0 on the Boston Celtics? Did anyone think that was really going to happen? I didn't. Dexter, I'm sure you didn't either. It was a minor miracle. They were up 2-0 coming home from Boston, overcoming two 20-point leads in the fourth quarter. In games, by the way, where the Knicks didn't even play that well. People can't forget, despite the fact that the Celtics played poorly in the fourth quarters of both those games, very poorly, and shot poorly in both games as well. Just, again, 25% in both those games. They're still world champions. Jayson Tatum's still really good. Jalen Brown's still really good. Pritchard off the bench is really good. White's really good. Horford's a champion. He's good. These are good players. The season was on the line for the Celtics. They had everything to play for. The Knicks were up 2-0. This should not be a surprise to anyone. Just heading into the game in terms of how the flow of series go. Number two, the Celtics outscored the Knicks by 45 points from behind the three-point line. It wasn't just that the Celtics shot 50% and hit 20. The Knicks made 5. They didn't make their third three-pointer until the start of the fourth quarter. If that's going to happen, do you know what percentage? Take everything else out of the equation. If in a game, a team outscores you by 45 points in the three-point line, your chance of winning is probably 1 in 100 at best. Maybe not even when it's these two teams playing each other. So that's the big picture stuff. That's the stuff that it's the flow of a series that happens. Look at the Nuggets series against the Thunder. You've had that series flip back and forth with, blowouts either way multiple times. So that's the first thing. Now, if you want to break it down from a micro level, I think this is where it's more useful. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened to the Knicks defense in the first half of that game. And I think, frankly, it's mostly Karl-Anthony Towns just playing with his head not in the right spot and in the clouds, maybe somewhere else if you want to be a little bit more, creative about it. But he just was not showing on pick and rolls. He was not switching on pick and rolls. He was not at the level on pick and rolls. And it opened up multiple open three-point shots in the first half of that game in rhythm, the types of threes the Celtics want. And I think that was a huge problem. Now, I think the Knicks got back to what they were doing in the first two games in the second half. And the Celtics only scored, 44 points in the second half of that game. Now, they're up by 20. So, are they, hitting on all cylinders? Probably not. That said, I think if the Knicks continue to switch most things and show and, don't play drop coverage against the pick and roll, I think their defense will be fine, Dex. I think it'll be okay. It'll be good enough to win. Here's the bigger problem, and this has been going back to the Pistons series, and I'm sorry for the long answer.
No, fine.
The Knicks have not scored well this whole postseason. Yep. Against the Pistons, you could chalk it up to the fact that, A, they're a really good defensive team, and B, the officials allowed them to play so physical the Knicks just couldn't do a lot. Now, that has not been the case in the series. Now, the Celtics might be a better defensive team than the Pistons, but they're not playing with the type of physicality that the Pistons did. That being said, the Celtics have a bunch of switchable defenders, and this is the crux of the issue for me if you're the Knicks. There is no one on this team that can consistently create an advantage in their one-on-one matchups, to force a double team, to create open looks and easy shots for the Knicks. Every basket they get is laborious. It's hard. They have to work hard for it. And again, that's what the Celtics defense is designed to do, and they have a really lot of good individual defenders. Like if they wind up with Derek White or Drew Holiday, their two guards on Karl-Anthony Towns, they're going to live with that. And this is what it comes down to. Someone has to be able to win their one-on-one matchups. And the way the Celtics are matching up here, they're putting a wing on the Knicks' 7-foot center, Karl-Anthony Towns. He has to figure out a way to win that matchup. That's the mismatch. He was able to do it against Tobias Harris at times in the Pistons series. He needs to do that and do it more consistently in this series. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for Jalen Brunson against Drew Holiday, one of the best defensive guards of this era. Taller wings that are getting put on him. And again, they're switching everything. So a lot of this off-ball player movement and backdoor cutting and things like that, it's just not going to work, Dex, because the Celtics are comfortable switching everything because the Knicks cannot exploit any potential mismatches. So that's the basis of why the offense is struggling. I don't think there's an easy answer to this other than hit the play better button offensively. But I'm sure Tom Thibodeau will try to mix things up. We could talk about potential lineup changes. But that, to me, is where we're at. I think the defense, if they play it the way they're supposed to and the way Tibbs is telling them to play it, I think they'll be okay. Offense, they need to still figure some things out here because it has not been good since the playoffs started.
Okay, so I love the macro and the micro answer here for this because I think it gives people a big picture of what we're going to try to dive into in this conversation because you talked about the offense, John. You talked about the defense as well. Let's start with the offense because it's not just this series. It's throughout the postseason. The Knicks have struggled offensively. The offensive rating in the series is below 100 points per possession. They're not looking really good. You talked about them winning the individual one-on-one matchups, which the Knicks don't really have somebody that can do it with ease outside of Jalen Brunson maybe in the clutch. Is there anything else specifically that you look at in terms of the offense that needs to change on that end of the ball in order for them to get back on track here in the series? Because it would feel like if they're going to win this series and going to win 2 more games, they're going to need a game where the offense plays well and it doesn't look as laborious, to take the word that you use. What do they need to change to get them back on track on offense?
Yeah, look, they're going to have to score 110 points to win in this series. I mean, the Celtics offense Dexter, it's really good. I mean, it's terrific. Even if they're not shooting 50% from 3, it's a terrific group offensively. So, again, I think with the way the Celtics are able to switch everything, there are no easy answers here. That doesn't mean there aren't things you can throw at the wall to see if they work. Try to free up Karl-Anthony Towns for 3-point shots. If he's not able to win in the post consistently, which he has not been able to do, he should be able to do, but he has not been able to do. Try to free him up for threes, run him off some, off-ball pin downs, some flare screens, some double picks, things like that. Try to figure out a way to get him open from 3. That would be one thing I would try to do. OG Anunoby, after a great game 1, has been just an abomination the last 2 games offensively. Really bad. I think he's getting the ball from a standstill too much. They ran so many dribble handoffs with him over the course of the regular season. Again, it's not going to be as effective as the Celtics are switching everything. But look, get it to him on the move. Let him in his 240-pound frame, get downhill towards the basket when he can use his strength to plow through a Jalen Brown, to plow through a Derek White, whoever happens to be on him on that specific play. Those are 2 things I think you can do. One thing I did like in Game 3, I thought they hit Josh Hart on a couple of those rolls off of his high screens for Brunson. Lean into that a little bit. Try to punish the Celtics for the same way you got to punish the Celtics for having a wing on Towns. Punish the Celtics for having a big on Hart, right? So he's got to make him pay on those plays. Those would be some of the things I would consider. I think a couple other things you can do is try to, get Bridges going early in some of these games. He's been great in the second halves and fourth quarters, but man, he's got to give you something in the first halves of these games. He just cannot buy a shot until you get past halftime. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know why, but it's something you're going to have to figure out. And look, as for Brunson, the Celtics are going to do whatever they can to slow him down. I don't think it's going to be a high-efficiency series for him. I think he slowly started to figure things out in Game 3 a little bit. He got to the line a little bit in the second half. Those would be the things I would look at again. But it's going to come down to just somebody playing better offensively. I mean, what player besides Brunson, Dex, and a game here or there for OG has really been good offensively consistently game to game in the playoffs. That player just has not been there. So someone eventually, the coaches can make all the adjustments they want. The players have to score. They have to hit their shots. They have to win their matchups, man. And eventually, they trade a lot for Bridges. OG's making a lot of money. Towns is making a ton of money. One of those guys has got to step up and be that guy that can get you 20 a game next to Brunson, who, again, is going to get his points, but he's going to have to work hard for them.
Yeah, no, a lot of great points there I like, too. You're right. Players have agency. They've got to step up as well, too. There's going to be a lot of talk from the fan base, and we're going to talk about it, too, what adjustments Tom Thibodeau can make and all that, but I know sometimes it's just that simple. You got to play better. You got to make shots. Now, you also brought up the defense, John, here, because in the first half of Game 3, and this shocked me, the Knicks got away from their usual switching defense. So, bit of a two-part question for me here, because one, why do you think they moved away from that strategy? Kind of didn't understand that. And then should the Knicks be encouraged by what you mentioned, their defensive effort in the second half of Game 3, which they held the Celtics to 44 points. So despite the lopsided loss, should they be encouraged by what they saw in the second half, and why the hell did they go away from the switching defense in the first half?
Dexter, did you see the reaction of the guards and the wings?
Yeah,
when
you saw
Karl-Anthony
Towns. Yeah, with Karl-Anthony Towns, he's dropping too much. You saw that, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it was a change in strategy. I think it was Karl Towns just not having a half a clue what he was doing on defense. I got to be honest with you.
Just to be clear about what you're talking about, you saw some of the guards and wings, OG Anunoby's one I remember in particular, kind of telling Cat to come up, move up more in the drop, and him not doing that. So you're saying this was Cat not doing what he's supposed to do.
And we've seen that before, right? Karl-Anthony Towns is a guy from game to game, quarter to quarter, half to half, can be an extremely volatile player. There's a reason he's not a good defensive player and not known for his defense. He struggles on defense. It is what it is. Which, by the way, Dexter, is why they need so much from him on offense. Because if he's going to be a liability on defense, and now, I give him credit. He's done a much better job rebounding in the series than he did against Detroit, when I think Duran kind of ate his lunch on the boards. He's done a much better job against Boston. He had a couple big putbacks at the end of those games. To his credit, he's been good on the boards. But he has to be better offensively to make up for some of these mistakes and adjustments the Knicks have to make up for his defense. I'm curious what you think, Dex. One thing I've heard Knicks fans say a lot last day or so is that they would like to see maybe Mitchell Robinson go into the starting lineup for Hart and play the two double bigs, because the double big lineup has actually been very good in this series. And I think, by the way, it shows you how Towns' defense and how much of a detriment it is that the presence of Mitchell Robinson can make that much of a difference in these games, right? When he's in, it just looks so much different on defense for the Knicks. And I don't know, after one loss, if you want to completely change your starting lineup. I think you give Hart one more shot here to make the Celtics pay for having a big on him the way he did in Game 2. But I do think you have to get Mitch on the floor early in these quarters, just so you don't get into the hack-a-Mitch thing, so the Celtics can't foul him when they're in the penalty. They're not going to foul him purposely when they have no team fouls at the start of a quarter. So I think figuring out how to use Mitch properly, too, from Tom Thibodeau, I think is also part of this. But I'm not sure I'm bored with the starting lineup change after just one loss to the Celtics.
It's funny because I had that as no. We're going to get to that in a second. I have that as no as a question for you. So I'll discuss that with you about the Josh Hart for Mitchell Robinson switch, right? Because that's an adjustment that you could see from the Knicks here. I'm kind of with you. I'm not sure so drastic of a change they should make, but we'll get into that in 1 second. Speaking of the word adjustments, because fans, you see this on social media all the time, right? They want to change everything game to game. They want to make sometimes drastic changes. I'm not sure that's going to happen, although I do think you have to tweak things, particularly in this series against the Celtics. For you, John, are there any adjustments that you would like to see from Tom Thibodeau in Game 4 to help the Knicks regain control of the series? Or is it simply what you just mentioned, right? Maybe get Mitchell Robinson to start these quarters a little bit earlier, which I think is a fair adjustment. Or is there something else you'd like to see Tom Thibodeau do? I was on WFAN last night, and Al Cintron brought up to me maybe giving Landry Shamet some minutes to see if he could be a spark off the bench. I got a little bit of concern about the defense, but go ahead. What are some adjustments you want to see?
I think there are things you can do on the margins, Dexter. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure they're going to be anything that makes the difference, for winner losing the series. But look, here are some things I would try.
Okay.
Cam Payne is giving you nothing. He's a mismatch on defense. The Celtics, as soon as they get anyone on him, they bring him down to the post. He might have that one game like he did in Game 1 against Detroit where he hits a couple of threes and he's going to help you there. But I would almost consider giving Shamet his minutes because I think he's going to hold up better on defense. And I think he'll give you some movement and switchability on defense, for one. and he'll give you some off-ball three movement. We talk about, them trying to cover for Brunson and Towns. Well, you also have to cover for Campaign when he's in the game because he's so light that if he gets one of these bigs on him, frankly, any one of the Celtics guards, they're all big. Drew Holiday's big. Derek White's big. Maybe he can stay with Peyton Pritchard, but Pritchard probably outweighs him by a good 20 pounds. But I would consider doing that. I don't think they will. I think, I think he's been fine. Deuce has actually played well this series. So people talk about starting Mitch for Hart. I would consider to get some more spacing, giving Deuce some more minutes and trying to get more 5-out shooting lineups on the floor when you can. That's something I would consider. People brought that up during the Detroit series, and I'm like, you can't do that because Deuce has been terrible. I mean, he was awful versus Detroit. But I think he's played pretty well against Boston. So I would be willing to give Deuce some more minutes to maybe get some threes out of him. Like I talk about trying to get Towns some more threes, run some actions for him off the ball. That's another adjustment I would consider. And then I talked about the Robinson thing, just get him in at the start of quarters. And then defensively, look, I know Tibbs he thinks his players are smart players. He likes to give them some freedom, especially when Brunson's in picks. Him and I think the guy with him kind of decide, are we switching this? Are we showing and getting back? I've seen too many plays where that's caused confusion and the Celtics shooters are too good. And Brunson, frankly, has done a good enough job, in my opinion, holding up on these switches. I would just switch everything. I tell every player on my team, I don't care what the pick and roll is, we're switching everything. Make the Celtics beat you one-on-one the same way they're making the Knicks beat them one-on-one because the Celtics utilize the switching defense too. And if Tatum and Brown and Holiday and these guys beat you with 2-point baskets and step back contested threes, you tip your cap. I don't like this. You don't want to put your defense in rotation. That's how the Celtics get open in rhythm threes. So if I was talking adjustments, that's what I would probably look at for game number 4.
No, some good ones there. I like that, especially on defense. I'm with you. Switch everything. Just make them beat you if they can one-on-one and try to have those shots as tough as possible. And if they do, like you said, you live with it. I know fans sometimes don't want to hear that, but I think you can live with that. A couple more things before we get to that lineup change.
Yeah.
Cat, clearly battling through a finger injury. We do not know how bad this is. We still haven't had any word from the Knicks or even Cat himself. He was a little bit cagey about that after the game. How much should Knicks fans be concerned about the finger injury for him and his effectiveness moving forward? And I'll put that on both ends of the court, whether it's offense, where they clearly need him, and defensively too.
It's his left thumb, correct, if I'm not mistaken?
Mm-hmm.
It's his non-shooting hand, dude, play. I think you just got to use him the way you use him. And if you play him a lot and you see that he can't make his shots and especially can't make threes, not that he's attempting a lot of them anyway, but if they actually get him some attempts and he can't make his shots and he can't make his threes, he can't be on the court. And I think you have to make that decision rather quickly. We saw him still make free throws at the end of game 4 or end of game 3, when he sustained that injury. So I'm not that concerned about it. That was kind of a what-if scenario if you see that he's really compromised and you have to do what you got to do. But I don't think he is, to be honest with you. I think he's fine. I don't think that's going to be a big factor in the game. He's going to get hit on drives. He'll get hit on rebounds. He's going to have to deal with it. I mean, Steph Curry has had a wrap on his shooting thumb, and he's playing with that, right? So I think that's something that, it's not now with the hamstring, obviously, but before he hurt the hamstring.
Yeah.
But I think he's just going to have to deal with it. And if you find that he's compromised to the point offensively where he can't make shots, then he doesn't play. Because like I said before, he's enough of a detriment on defense where if he's not helping you offensively, I don't see why you have him out there. But again, I don't think it's going to come to that. I think he'll be fine.
All right, we'll see how that is with Cat moving forward. Now, the other big man for the Knicks we talked about here, Mitchell Robinson. Free throw shooting. It's become I don't know if I should say it's a major issue, John. It's a
thing. It's a thing.
It's an adventure for him at the line. We don't know what's going to happen. Is he going to hit the rim? Is he going to airball? We have no idea how this all is going to go. Is he becoming, despite everything you said about him earlier when we talked about the macro-micro look at the Knicks throughout this series, and you talked about how impactful he's been for this team defensively, I do have to ask, though, is he becoming unplayable in critical moments of this series because of how the free throw shooting has become an adventure? What do you say to that? Is he becoming unplayable? And if he is unplayable, what are the options then for the Knicks?
And by the way, he also helps on the offensive glass. So we talk about how good he's
Yes.
been defensively. Offensive rebounds and second chance points. He's been invaluable in that regard too. So I think it's important not to overlook that.
Yep.
If they're in the penalty, if this, and the Knicks are shooting 2 free throws on every shot at the end of the first quarter, end of the second quarter, end of the third quarter, it's going to be hard to keep him out there. That's just the way it is. So I think, Tom, the good news, or the silver lining of the fact that Mitchell Robinson's general stamina is usually not the best anyway. You don't want to play him much more than 24 minutes a game at most. You just play him at intervals when the Knicks are not in the penalty, and then when they are, you take him out of the game unless he shows he can make some free throws. It gets tricky at the end of games, right? When you can't have him in crunch time minutes because the Celtics are going to put him on the line if you have the ball. So I think it's going to be essential for Tom Thibodeau to make sure he carries his timeouts into the fourth quarter as much as he can. Now, for fans that don't know, they reset it at I think it's 2-minute mark, right? Every team only gets 2 timeouts after 2 minutes mark in the fourth quarter, I think. So, that gets reset anyway. But Tom Thibodeau better keep those timeouts so you can do some offense-defense substitutions with Robinson so you can get his impact on defense, rebounding, but you can call timeout, get him off the floor on some of these critical offensive possessions in the fourth quarter so they're not going to foul Mitch. So I do think that's maybe the most important thing Thibodeau's going to do here is just make sure he's on the floor whenever you can and you get the good out of him, but you avoid some of the bad.
Yeah, that is the hope because we've seen some of the good, we've seen the bad, we've seen the ugly on some of
Which
these
is, by the
teams.
way, is one argument to start him, right? Because they're not going to foul him right off the bat with no team fouls to start the game.
So
So
that, right.
that would be a way to get him like an extra 6 minutes at the start of the game. But the problem with that, Dex, is that then Towns usually comes out after 6 minutes and then comes back at the start of the second quarter. You couldn't do that then. You would have to then keep Towns in the whole quarter. It would mess up your whole substitution rhythm and pattern. So that's something else that Thibodeau will have to consider in whether or not to start Mitch, because it's really going to have to change the whole rhythm of him subbing Towns in and out of the game and having him on the floor at the start of the second quarter against a lot of the Celtics subs. That's when they like to have him after that first mini rest. He'd have to change that if he starts Mitch in the starting lineup with Towns.
Yeah, and that I was going to come back to what you brought up, right? Because you asked me to what were my thoughts on this, and should the Knicks consider starting Josh Hart and putting Mitchell Robinson to start, and putting Josh Hart on the bench? Look, it would help them have a different look, obviously defensively early on in the game. Do I think Josh Hart can be impactful, John, off the bench? Yes. And probably, maybe he would, there's an argument he could be more impactful against the other team's second unit. However, I think the point you just brought up is what makes me think about whether or not this is worth doing this. How much does it affect the substitution patterns here? Do you then have to start giving minutes to Precious Achiuwa? Now, Precious Achiuwa, his minutes in Game 3, 6 minutes, wasn't bad.
Nah, he was pretty good. He was pretty good.
He is a guy who can switch. That
yes,
helps.
He can.
But let's be honest here. The Precious Achiuwa experience sometimes can be a roller coaster ride.
I talked about Towns being very up and down and mercurial, quarter to quarter, game to game. Well, do that times 100 for Precious Achiuwa.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot to consider here. And I'm going to throw this back to you. I guess what I'm saying is I'm kind of on the fence on this, but what I will say is this is a series against the Celtics where I have to hold myself accountable. I said going into this series, this is one where Tom Thibodeau needs to try to throw the kitchen sink at the Celtics. This is one where I think fans and us who cover the team want to see him try to make adjustments. And that's why I brought up the question to you earlier. So is this an adjustment that I think is worth the Knicks looking into? Sure. It's fine. I think how you do it is what matters here. And this is where it elaborates more on your point, starting off the quarters. Could it hurt you to start the game this way? No, I don't think so. And I would particularly say in a Game 4, the Celtics got the game they needed to your point earlier, where they needed to win. They had to win this game. They're the world champions. Their backs were against the wall. Now you throw something different at them that they haven't seen. They hadn't seen the Knicks switch everything until Game 1. We saw that. Now you get to see them with a too-big lineup to start the game. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. My only concern is how much does it tax Cat? Does that then take away from Cat on the defensive end, where he's already looked pretty shaky in Game 3? So I'm on the fence. If Tibbs did it, John, would I be upset at it? No. In fact, I probably laud him for trying something new. If he doesn't do it at the same time, I'm also not mad at it. What do you say to that? Do they need this different look offensively and defensively? Is this a change you think they should make?
I'm the exact same boat as you are, Dex. That's where
Okay.
I'm at. And I think the way I would handle it is I would start my usual starting five, and I would just get in Josh Hart's ear and be like, dude, you got to take that open three, man. Like, fire away. I don't care if you miss a couple. Stay confident. If Porzingis or whomever's, maybe it's going to be Horford that's going to on him, be on to start the game. If they're just going to ignore you and leave you, take the three. Get him in the corner. He's more confident on the corner threes. Take the three. If you're not going to take the three, then at least dribble, drive, and create something for a teammate. But you have to make the most of those opportunities, because that's the only reason why you don't do the double big lineup, because you think the lack of, Mitch gives even less spacing than Hart does, right? If Hart can give you a little bit of something on those plays where they just ignore him on offense, like he was a big reason they won game 2, man. He's led the team in scoring. If he can give you that again, that's okay. Maybe you get through the first half, Dex, if you're down 10 or you're losing or Hart's not giving you anything, and then you want to start the second half with Mitch and Towns, the double big, I would do that. So I'd give Hart one more chance in the starting lineup to start the game. If that does not work, I would start half number 2 with the double bigs and see how that goes.
I can rock with that. I like that. If it doesn't work, go to it in the second half, especially if you're not down. Maybe if you are down, maybe you still need some different kind of spark here. That could be a good adjustment. But here's the million-dollar question, John, because I asked you what adjustments you would like to see from Tom Thibodeau in Game 4 to see if the Knicks can try to regain control of the series and take a 3-1 lead. But do you think it's likely that Tom Thibodeau makes any adjustments here in Game 4? Because this is not something we've seen from Tom Thibodeau throughout the playoffs. Do you think it's likely he makes any adjustments here?
I think during the regular season, fans are rightfully critical of Thibodeau sometimes for just doing what he does. I will disagree with the fact he does not make adjustments in the playoffs. We saw him make adjustments against the Pistons midway through that series. We saw him change his entire defensive philosophy that he used all year, Dex, at the start of this series. So I think he does make changes and adjustments as series go along. Are they always the ones the fans want or they care about? Maybe not. But I do think we'll see some changes on offense. I think, again, we saw a little bit of a change already in Game 3. They caught Hart on some of those, rolls to the basket on the screens for Brunson. I think that was an adjustment. The next one is to try to get Anunoby and Towns going, right? Again, try to get Towns an open 3. I'm not sure we're going to see that. I think we really need to. That's something that the coach needs to try to get done. And again, I want to get Anunoby the ball on these dribble handoffs. Let him catch it on the move. Don't make him start his play from a stop position. Things like that. I think we'll see some of that. I think we will see some of those adjustments. And I think he needs to get back, again, to that switching defensive principle. Of the principles they use so much in Games 1 and 2, they got away from in the first half of Game 3. And I think if they do that the whole game, the Knicks will stay in the game. I think you're going to make the Celtics play a way they don't want to play. I think, look, is Tom Thibodeau perfect? No. Will the Knicks win their championship with Tom Thibodeau as their head coach? Probably not. But some fans act like he's like a top 8 worst coach in the league, and it's just insanity. It's just not correct. So I think we'll see a little bit more in this game. I hope, because the offense has to get better, because it just has not been what it needs to be if the Knicks want to be a credible threat to the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series. And I think it's very important for the Knicks to win this game, and which by they do, they're still out of the woods, only up 3-1. Boston can easily, rack up 3 straight wins. So it's a very important game. I think it'll be a closer game. I think they'll play well, and we'll see if it's going to be enough to beat a team in the Celtics that, remember, folks, I don't know what your prediction was, before the series started, Dex. I love the Knicks. I'm very bullish on them in the roster. I had Celtics in 5. That was just how I thought the series was going to go. So just be realistic about how good the Celtics team is. But the Knicks, and I said this on my first answer, as bad as the Celtics shot in Games 1 and 2, the Knicks have not played well yet in this series. You have not had more than maybe 1.5 of their players play well at any given time in this series in any game. That's going to come at some point. I hope it comes in Game 4.
Okay, so we'll see if there are any adjustments from Tom Thibodeau here in Game 4. But when we talk about Game 4, How critical is it, John, for Jalen Brunson to have a big performance in this one, particularly after he's been, I would say by his standards, relatively quiet this series, and in Game 3, he's had to work for a lot, as you mentioned earlier, but how critical is it for him to have a big-time performance here in Game 4?
Look, I joked at the start of the series when I gave the scenarios of how the Knicks could possibly be competitive or win the series. And the assumption in all of those was that, oh, yeah, Brunson's going to average 30 and be great. Like, that's how, look, if you're playing a team like the Celtics, your best player is going to have to be awesome. And he has not had an awesome game yet. He's had stretches, fourth quarters, but efficiency-wise and, stuff like that, he has not been great. So, yeah, he's going to have to be awesome, Dex. Like, Jalen Brunson is their best player, and he's going to need some help. Someone else has to step up, but Brunson has to be the guy. And look, I will give him credit. Usually over the course of these series, he figures out how to score against these defenders, no matter who they are. He's one of the smarter players in figuring out how to navigate a defense. But the Celtics are really good at this. They're a reason that they're one of the best defenses in the league. So, yeah, he has to figure it out. He has to figure it out quickly, and the Knicks will need him to be great if they want to figure out a way to close this thing out and win 2 more games.
All right, going to need him to be great in Game 4. Great in Game 3, or at least from downtown, was Jayson Tatum. How can the Knicks better contain Jayson Tatum? I know this is a question that is easier asked than actually finding the execution for it, but he found his rhythm in Game 3, especially from beyond the arc after struggling early in the series. What do the Knicks have to do better against Jayson Tatum in Game 4?
Don't let him take rhythm pull-up threes off high screens. I mean, he's so good at it. He's really good at it. He'll hit a couple tough step backs. You tip your cap on those, but make him take it to the hoop and make contested twos. And look, we saw in the regular season, he had a couple games where in close fourth quarters, he's hitting like 15-foot fadeaways over Mikal Bridges. Whatever, cool. He's great. He's a great player. He's going to make those, but make him make those. Don't let him get those in-rhythm threes at the top of the key or the wing off of those high screens. And the Knicks you can't turn it all over. You can't turn the ball over either, Dex, because it's not a dunk for the Celtics off turnovers. It's an open three, and they usually make them. So don't let him get those in-rhythm threes off pick and roll or in transition. I think the Knicks will be okay.
When you look at this Game 4, John, I like to always do this with my guests. Okay, what are the keys to win this game? You just mentioned one, turnovers. Taking care of the ball would be nice. Do you have 2 or 3 other keys when you look at this matchup in Game 4 for the Knicks to win this game at MSG?
Yeah, I'll rapid fire a bunch. Defense, again, switch everything. Make the Celtics beat you one-on-one. Make them beat you with twos. Make them beat you with tough step-back threes that are contested. Don't let them swing the ball and get wide open, catch-and-shoot threes. You will lose. You will lose. Do a better job on the glass. The Celtics have gotten way too many second-chance points on the offensive glass. Be better rebounding the basketball. That's another one. Don't turn it over as much. Like I talked about transition. Don't turn the ball over. Brunson's has to shoot well. You got to shoot the ball well from 3 as a team. Someone other than Brunson has to step up and give you something in the first half of this game. Bridges, second half, he's been great. Can somebody give him something offensively in the first quarter where you get some type of easier baskets? I think the Knicks have to push the pace a little bit. You cannot do these slogging half-court possessions. Rebound and go. That gets back to defensive rebounding too, right? If you don't rebound, you can't run. You can't run off of makes. You got to run off of rebounds. Get in transition. Get some easy looks that way. Runs to the basket with Hart and Brunson. Pull up threes. Whatever the shot is. Get, trailing cat threes. Get in transition a little bit. Try to push the pace. And again, just get somebody going besides Brunson, whether it's cat shooting threes, OG, getting dribble handoffs, getting the ball on the move, Bridges just shooting better, maybe just giving him some more of those high pick and roll opportunities to those mid-range jump shots in the first half and hope he makes them. But look, that's it. If you can do those things, there's no guarantee you're winning, Dex, but at least you're going to be in it, and you hope Brunson does what he does at the end of these games and the Celtics get a little bit tight. They miss shots at the end of the game like they did in Boston, and then you're rocking and rolling. But look, the Celtics are great. The Knicks have to play, frankly, a much better game than they've played in any of the 3 games in the series, I think, if they're going to want to win Game 4.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. You think the Knicks will be confident if they can have this as a closer game, obviously not falling behind 15 or 20 points. That's one of my keys here. You can't fall behind as much as they have and go to that well once again. It worked for you in Games 1 and 2. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you here in Game 4. Last thing for me, John, because we look at these first 3 games of this series. We talk about how the Knicks came back in Games 1 and 2. And then you saw what happens in Game 3. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't put this on you. I was going to ask you if you're confident, because I think you are where I was which is you thought the Knicks could be competitive in this series. You just respect what the champions have done. And I think that's fair and rational to look at that. But when you look at what the Knicks did, they're in a position where they've won 2 games. Are you confident the Knicks can get 2 more wins against the Celtics here and get it done? Because they're so close. They're halfway there. I know it's got the fans thinking and excited, but can this team get 2 more wins in this series against the Celtics?
Up 2-0. Everyone asked me, and I said it's a coin toss series to me. Even up 2-0, it was a flip a coin. I could see it going either way. What happened in Game 3 does not change my thought process on the series at all. I thought a game like that was going to happen. The Celtics were going to get hot. They were going to play their best. The Knicks were going to play poorly, and the Celtics were going to blow them out. It was going to happen at some point. It finally happened in Game 3, and that's okay. It did not change my outlook on the series. For me, this is still a coin flip series, man. It can go either way. With the Knicks only having to win, 2 more games, Celtics having to win 3, and the game split 2-2 in Boston and New York in terms of home court advantage. So, for me, it's a coin flip series, but the Knicks have to play better. And everyone after 2 games is like, "Oh, Tom Thibodeau safe after the year. Oh, the whole group's gonna come back. It's gonna be awesome." And I was always like, "Guys, what if they lose 4-2?" Well, that's not like off the reservation crazy given how good the Celtics are. So, look, you got to play better, and I think what happens in the next couple games, Dex, will go a long way towards determining what this Knicks offseason looks like, which could either be a lot of status quo or could theoretically be a lot of change too. We'll have to wait and see.
It's going to be very interesting. Well, either way, I thought going into the series, there was going to be a lot to evaluate on the Knicks. We've had a lot to evaluate thus far, but you were right, sir. The Knicks, they've got to play better than they did so far. They still have not had an A game. I would say this series, probably the entire playoffs. We've yet to see their best game. So we'll see if they have it for Game 4, and we'll see what they can do the rest of the series. That is John Schmeelk. Check him out. Well, a lot of you know him from his work with the Giants. Does a fantastic job with the New York Giants there, who've had an interesting offseason and should have an interesting 2025 season. And then catch him. He also contributes to Knicks Film School, one of the greats on that platform. John, always a pleasure seeing you. You didn't take any L's on Mother's Day. I did not either. And we're hoping that the Knicks do not take an L in Game 4 and can win this series.
No, I appreciate it, Dex. And for Giant fans out there, just check out Big Blue Kickoff Live, Giants Huddle Podcast, our 2 podcasts. It's on YouTube, podcast platforms, Giants.com, Giants app. We've had great coverage of minicamp over the weekend. Having really good stuff on the draft picks. We interviewed Chase Daniel, Kurt Warner, Dan Orlovsky's coming up on Jackson Dart. So if you're a Giant fan out there, a lot of good content if you want to learn about this draft class.
You know what? And reminds me, I got to get you on to talk some Giant stuff because I got some
Anytime,
questions.
brother.
I got some questions for you about this offseason, some good questions that I think the Giants fans will like to hear. So
always love talking Giants, dude. Anytime.
Anytime. The Giants are basketball with the great John Schmeelk. Schmeelk, thank you, man. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate it, dude.
The Knicks are heating up.
All right, well, it's crunch time for the Knicks. Crazy to say it's crunch time about a Game 4, but this is a big one for the Knicks. Maybe you thought Game 3 was the biggest game at Madison Square Garden in quite some time, but now it shifts to Games 4, and it feels like it should be a must-win situation for the Knicks. I think the Knicks do have to win this Game 4. They cannot give the Celtics any life going back to Boston. You want to go back to Boston still having home court advantage, knowing that you can have 3 games to play with 1 at home. If you go back 2-2 where you still have to win 2 with 1 at home instead of winning 1, that is a huge difference for the Knicks. But like I talked about with John Schmeelk, the Knicks have to be better. They have to play better. They have to make shots. And I expect their captain will step up for them in a big way in Game 4. But who's going to step up with him? That is the question. Who will step up and help Jalen Brunson, give him the support that he needs? Karl-Anthony Towns has to be better on defense. OG Anunoby has to look like he did in Game 1. Josh Hart has to look like he did in Game 1. A lot of things have to go right. You have to respect the champions. But this is the time for the Knicks to show their fight, for us to see what they are truly made of. This team has been clutch all year. They have been gritty when they've needed to be here in these playoffs, but they still have yet to play their best offensive game, and we'll see if they can put together a complete 48 minutes. That's what it's going to take to get 2 more wins in this series. Also looking ahead through this week, we're going to have more playoff coverage, more live watch parties with myself and Brian Fonseca with you for Games 4 and 5. We'll see if we need a Game 6, but we'll be with you for those live watch parties, so continue to tap in with us. And then on Saturday, the New York Liberty, the defending champion New York Liberty, they kick off their season against the Las Vegas Aces at home at the Barclays Center. That should be a good one. We'll be talking a lot more Liberty hoops. Madeline Kenny will be joining me in the coming weeks. We'll also do some live stuff around the Liberty coming up soon, so it should be fun times here on New York Got Game. But we're going to bounce here. We've got a big Game 4 coming up on Monday night. That should be fun. Got to thank all the people here who make this such a great endeavor. Tommy Cohen producing this week on the show, making it look good. Also my editor, Corey Porter, as well, doing a fantastic job. Salute to everybody watching New York Got Game. We'll be back with you next week where we'll be talking a little Liberty. Maybe we'll be talking about the Knicks moving on to the conference finals or possibly playing a Game 7. There'll be a lot to talk about on the next edition of New York Got Game, but we will see you then next week on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.